this is a test run. For the first video, I will be showing you how to interpret a theoretical model and how to find variables that can adequately measure the concepts in your theoretical model. Okay, so after reading the literature review, these are some concepts that I found interesting and that I wanted to incorporate into my study. Okay, so the concepts that I have in my theoretical model are cultural assimilation, political views, suicide acceptability, and demographic variables. Okay, so what this theoretical model says, the way it reads is cultural assimilation has a direct impact on suicide acceptability. Political views has a direct impact on suicide acceptability, but it also functions as a moderating variable for the relationship between cultural assimilation and suicide acceptability. And then lastly, we have demographic variables directly impacting suicide acceptability. So for my first concept, which is demographic variables, I searched the GSS for basic variables that are constantly used in the literature. So some of these variables include age, sex, the marital status of the respondent, the race, the religious. Other variables that could be included would be variables like income. Okay, so for my theoretical model, I chose 5 different variables to use as part of my demographics of an individual. Okay, so now for my next one, which is cultural assimilation. So cultural assimilation is a bigger, more abstract concept, but in the literature there is a sub category to this concept, which is called generational status. Okay, and if we look at the literature, there are some ways to find measures or variables that can measure some of these concepts. Okay, so previous scholars have already used this concept known as generational status, and they have already found an accurate way or a valid and reliable way of measuring the concept. Okay, so what they do is they measure a person's first generational status by asking the individual if they were born in the US or outside of the US. It measures second generational status by asking the person if their parents were born in the US or if they're foreign born. And then the third question is asking if grandparents were born in the US or if they weren't born in the US. Okay, and some ways to find these measures in the literature is by looking at your article and going to the method section. Usually the method section is after the literature review, and you would go down to variables, or it has a subheading known as measures. Okay, and this is where the author describes what variables were used to measure the concepts in their study and how they approach measuring those concepts. Okay, so going back again, in that article I just showed you, they used 3 variables, and these are the 3 variables that were used to measure the concept generational status, which is a subcategory to the bigger concept known as cultural assimilation. Now for my next one, my next concept, I have political views. Okay, political views, there was one variable in the GSS that accurately measured political views, and here it asks the respondent how they view themselves. Okay, their political views. Do they think that extreme conservatives or the extreme liberals. Okay, this is an ordinal scale measure. And now for my last concept, which is suicide acceptability, I use 4 different variables. And these variables ask the respondent if they are okay with an individual who committed suicide because they had an incurable disease, because they were bankrupt, because they dishonored the family, or if they were tired of living. Okay, so to summarize, these would be the variables that I would be using to measure the concepts in my theoretical model. Okay, so one more time, the way that this theoretical model reads is cultural assimilation has a direct impact on suicide acceptability. Political views can serve as a moderating variable, but it also has a direct impact on suicide acceptability. And then our demographic variables, which are controls, would also have an impact on suicide acceptability. All right, so that would conclude this video. For the next video, I will be showing how to recode these variables so that we can get them ready for to run our analysis. All right, well, I'll see you guys on the next video.